Awaken your spirit, chosen ones. The moment people stop minding their business and start minding yours, something has shifted. There's a strange point in life where attention stops feeling accidental. It's not admiration, and it's definitely not coincidence. It's that quiet, persistent awareness that eyes are tracking your moves, not because you announced yourself, but because something about you refuses to stay small. You didn't raise a flag. You didn't send a memo. Yet suddenly people remember your name a little too well. Notice when you enter a room and go oddly silent when you succeed. That's not paranoia. That's pattern recognition. Here's a fact most people never talk about. Human beings are wired to monitor anomalies. In psychology, anything that breaks the expected pattern draws prolonged attention, whether it's a genius, a rebel, or someone who simply refuses to collapse where others did. You didn't fit the average outcome, and the brain hates loose ends. So they watch. Not out of curiosity alone, but out of instinct. What makes this even stranger is that you probably weren't trying to stand out. You were just trying to survive, improve, and mind your own business. Yet somehow, that alone made you noticeable. It's almost funny in a dry way. You spend years being overlooked, and the moment you stop chasing validation, suddenly everyone becomes a part-time investigator. People who never checked on you now keep mental tabs. People who underestimated you now study you like you changed the rules without warning. This isn't about ego, it's about position. When someone steps slightly outside the invisible lines society expects them to stay within, attention sharpens. Conversations shift, energy changes, and the room starts adjusting around you instead of the other way around. So if you felt that subtle shift, the lingering stares, the strange interest, the quiet monitoring, relax. You're not imagining it. You've simply reached the point where being chosen is no longer a title. It's a reaction. Number 1, you disrupt people without trying to, and that scares them. You don't walk into rooms trying to shake anything up. You're not out to challenge anyone's beliefs, ego, or comfort. Yet somehow things feel different when you're around. Conversations pause. Energy shifts. People become a little more aware of themselves, and that's where the discomfort starts. You disrupt not by force, but by contrast. Most people survive by running on habits, roles, and quiet self-deception. They tell themselves stories that make their choices easier to live with. Then someone like you shows up. Not loud, not arrogant, not confrontational. And those stories start feeling thin. Your discipline highlights their excuses. Your calm exposes their chaos. Your growth reminds them of promises they quietly abandoned. You didn't accuse them of anything, but they feel exposed anyway. That's why the attention feels tense instead of warm. They're not watching because they admire you. They're watching because you interfere with the internal balance they worked hard to maintain. You make people more conscious, and consciousness is uncomfortable for anyone who prefers autopilot. Around you, people can't fully relax into their old patterns. They feel seen without being looked at directly, and that's unsettling. What really scares them is that you're not doing anything extraordinary on the surface. You're just being consistent. You're just not shrinking to make others comfortable. That sends a dangerous signal to people who built their lives on compromise and delay. If you can change without becoming bitter, without cutting corners, without losing yourself, then their reasons for staying stuck start sounding weak, even to themselves. So they observe you closely. They analyze your moves. They try to figure out what your trick is, because accepting that it's simply inner alignment would mean admitting they chose differently. And that admission is harder than suspicion. You don't disrupt because you want to. You disrupt because your existence challenges the quiet agreements people made with their fear. That's why the eyes stay on you. Not because you're attacking the system, but because you're proof that it doesn't have to be obeyed. Number 2, they study you because they can't predict you. People relax around patterns. Predictable behavior feels safe because it removes surprise, and surprise threatens control. That's why most social systems quietly reward sameness. You, however, don't move in straight lines that others can easily map. You don't always react the way people expect, and you don't respond according to the emotional script they've memorized. That unpredictability puts you under observation. When something can't be forecasted, it becomes interesting and unsettling at the same time. People start paying attention, not because they want to learn from you, but because they want to prepare for you. They watch how you handle pressure, how you respond to praise, how you act when ignored. Every reaction becomes data. They're trying to figure out whether you're a threat, an anomaly, or someone they can eventually categorize. What makes you hard to read is that your decisions aren't driven by the room. You don't shift your personality to fit expectations. Sometimes you pull back when attention is offered. Other times you step forward when others hesitate. That inconsistency isn't confusion. It's self-direction. And self-directed people are difficult to manipulate because they don't move on external cues. This is where the curiosity deepens. People expect ambition to look loud, insecurity to look obvious, and strength to look aggressive. You break those visual shortcuts. You stay composed where others would react emotionally. You disengage from battles people assume you should fight. That forces them to keep watching, because they never quite get a read on you. Unpredictability also exposes hidden intentions. Those who rely on controlling outcomes become uneasy around you. They can't plan around someone they don't understand. They can't provoke a reliable reaction. They can't predict whether you'll comply, confront, or walk away entirely. So attention increases. Conversations get dissected. Small details get remembered. You're studied because you don't belong to a formula. And in a world built on predictability, someone who moves from inner clarity instead of social pressure will always attract watchful eyes. Number 3, your growth didn't come with permission, and that unsettles them. Most people live under invisible contracts. They wait for approval from someone, somewhere, before they allow themselves to evolve. Society teaches us to ask for permission, to seek validation, to slow down until others are ready to notice. You, however, didn't wait. You didn't pause for approval, applause, or acknowledgement. You grew anyway. That alone makes people uncomfortable because it breaks a rule they never realized they were following. When someone progresses without asking, it highlights how much time others wasted waiting. It exposes the invisible chains of conformity, and that exposure makes people uneasy. They see you moving forward and feel a quiet accusation in your existence, not because you intended it, but because your growth acts as a silent mirror. It reflects what they avoided, what they delayed, and what they quietly gave up on. That reflection stings more than direct confrontation ever could. Your progress is self-sufficient. You didn't rise because someone lifted you or because circumstances were perfect. You rose despite doubts, obstacles, and noise. That independence triggers attention because humans instinctively monitor variables they can't control. They want to understand how you did it, dissect it, and sometimes try to find a flaw. If they can't, they keep watching, silently wrestling with their own stagnation. There's also a subtle fear. If someone can grow without permission, it implies that rules are optional. Boundaries that once felt absolute suddenly look arbitrary. Systems, hierarchies, and traditions that promise security now appear fragile when someone like you bypasses them effortlessly. People sense this shift instinctively, even if they can't articulate it. You didn't aim to unsettle anyone, yet your growth is loud in its clarity. You proved that movement doesn't require approval and that patience isn't always passive. That makes people watch, question, and sometimes resent. Not because they dislike you, but because your quiet self-advancement highlights the chains they voluntarily accepted. They're drawn in by what you became and unsettled by what they chose not to. Number 4, you make people aware of their own wasted potential. You don't set out to remind anyone of what they haven't done, but somehow your presence does exactly that. People carry around unfulfilled goals, abandoned dreams, and quiet regrets like invisible backpacks, and they've grown accustomed to the weight. Then someone like you walks in, someone who moves, achieves, and acts with clarity, and those backpacks suddenly feel heavier. Your progress isn't loud or boastful, but it's undeniable, and that quiet proof of possibility makes others uncomfortable. The truth is, most people live with a self-imposed limit. They tell themselves it's too late, too risky, too complicated. They rationalize, delay, and distract. When they see you moving in ways they only talked about, it exposes the gap between intention and action. You don't lecture, you don't shame, and yet your existence highlights a truth they've been avoiding. They have been wasting themselves. This discomfort is why people watch you so closely. It isn't envy alone, it's recognition of their own hesitation. Your discipline, focus, and courage reflect what they feared facing in themselves. They notice how naturally you align with your goals, how decisively you take steps forward, and how you maintain consistency without collapsing under doubt. That contrast triggers self-awareness, and self-awareness without preparation feels almost threatening. Your impact goes deeper than surface-level comparison. It stirs restlessness, questions, and silent admissions. People might smile politely, nod, or even compliment you, but underneath it all, they are recalculating what they've chosen to ignore. They are forced to confront the dreams they stalled, the opportunities they avoided, and the time they lost. You become a silent disruptor of comfort zones. Your growth doesn't demand their action, yet it inspires it simply by existing. And that is why eyes linger, conversations shift, and attention clings. You are proof that human potential can be realized, and that proof is uncomfortable for anyone who settled for less. You make them aware, not through words, but through the undeniable evidence of what's possible when someone refuses to waste themselves. Number 5. You're not loud, but you're not invisible either. There's a strange kind of power in existing in the middle. You don't shout to be noticed, you don't perform to get validation, and you don't bend yourself to fit into someone else's story. Yet, at the same time, you refuse to vanish into the background. That balance, quiet presence paired with undeniable visibility, is rare, and it makes people pay attention without fully understanding why. Most people fall into extremes. Some are loud, desperate for recognition, craving validation with every gesture, and constantly performing to feel alive. Others shrink so thoroughly that they become easy to ignore, a shadow in the corner of everyone else's life. You don't fit either pattern. You are present, moving through life on your own terms, and that creates an energy that's difficult to categorize. People notice because you occupy space without demanding it. Your calm presence is powerful because it forces others to reassess their own behavior. They are forced to measure their own energy against yours, and most of the time, they feel slightly off balance. They may not consciously understand it, but they sense a standard they can't replicate and a composure they can't easily shake. You become a reference point, a subtle comparison that exists without effort. This middle ground also carries mystery. People don't know whether you're shy, strategic, or just completely indifferent. That ambiguity keeps them engaged. When someone is predictable, the brain categorizes them quickly and moves on. When someone resists categorization, attention sticks. You don't have to perform miracles or make grand gestures. Simply being yourself is enough to draw eyes and curiosity. The truth is, your presence feels like a quiet challenge. You are proof that influence doesn't require volume. Attention can be earned without theatrics, and power doesn't need to be boisterous. You aren't trying to intimidate or impress, yet the balance of visibility and restraint keeps people intrigued, alert, and often a little unsettled. They watch, they notice, and they can't quite place why you linger in their awareness, because your existence refuses to conform, yet refuses to hide. Number 6. You move with intent, not urgency. There's a huge difference between rushing through life and moving with purpose. Most people confuse speed with progress, thinking that frantic motion equals accomplishment. You, however, operate on a different frequency. Every step you take, every decision you make is deliberate. It carries weight because it is measured, considered, and aligned with something bigger than the immediate moment. That kind of movement is magnetic and unsettling at the same time. People can't help but notice it because it feels rare in a world addicted to noise and haste. When you act with intent, it signals mastery. You're not reacting to chaos around you, you're responding to your own design. You don't let distractions dictate your pace, and you don't chase external validation to move forward. That composure makes people uncomfortable because it reveals their own tendency to flail without direction. Watching someone move deliberately is like watching a quiet storm. They aren't loud, but every motion carries energy that can't be ignored. Intentional movement also carries authority. Without raising your voice or demanding attention, you naturally occupy space and set standards. Others notice because you don't need to force outcomes. Your presence and your choices create influence simply by existing. It's a subtle power that often intimidates, especially for people used to controlling through urgency, pressure, or dramatics. They see your calm efficiency and instinctively compare it to their reactive chaos. Another reason people are drawn to study you is curiosity. They can't predict what will happen next, yet they know it will happen on purpose. Your actions have clarity, not randomness, and that clarity triggers attention. They watch to see where focus and discipline will take you because it's unlike anything they usually encounter. You move with intent, not urgency, and that distinction changes everything. While others race blindly, hoping for results, you progress steadily, deliberately, and inevitably. Your calm momentum becomes impossible to ignore, quietly highlighting the difference between living in panic and living with purpose. That is why all eyes are on you, because you've discovered the power of intentional motion. Number 7. Your independence exposes hidden power dynamics. Independence has a strange effect on people. Most are conditioned to rely on networks, alliances, and social validation to survive. They measure influence by who is connected to whom, who can sway decisions, and who owes favors. Then someone like you appears, someone who doesn't bend to social pressure, doesn't seek approval, and doesn't need anyone's permission to move forward, and suddenly those hidden dynamics become glaringly obvious. Your independence acts like a spotlight on the fragile scaffolding of control that people build around themselves. When you operate free of external dependency, it forces others to confront how much they rely on others to get by. People who are used to manipulating outcomes through subtle influence or alliances feel exposed around someone who is self-reliant. Your presence makes them aware that their strategies only work on those who can be controlled, and that you, by definition, cannot be manipulated or predicted. That awareness is uncomfortable, even if they don't voice it. Independence also triggers observation, because humans are wired to monitor potential threats. Someone who can function entirely on their own is inherently unpredictable. They can't be cornered, bought, or easily influenced. This unpredictability makes others watch, calculate, and sometimes overanalyze. They're trying to understand a variable that doesn't operate according to the rules they know, and in that process your autonomy becomes a source of silent tension. Moreover, your independence doesn't demand attention, it commands it. People can't help but notice when someone moves through life unshackled by the invisible chains that hold everyone else in place. Every choice you make, every boundary you set, reveals what others have quietly surrendered. You unintentionally highlight compromise, conformity, and reliance, and that reflection is both fascinating and threatening. Your independence exposes hidden power dynamics because it makes people conscious of what they've given away and what they can't control. You aren't aggressive, you aren't confrontational, and you aren't loud. Yet simply by existing and moving freely, you force others to acknowledge the unseen rules of influence and realize they no longer apply to you. That's why attention naturally follows you, and why every eye in the room instinctively tracks your moves. Number 8. You attract projection more than admiration. People rarely see you for who you actually are. Instead, they see what they carry inside, their fears, frustrations, envy, and insecurities, and they project it onto you. When you succeed, they interpret it as luck or advantage. When you act with clarity, they accuse you of being cold or calculating. When you remain composed, they label it as arrogance. None of it is about you. It's about what they refuse to face in themselves. That's why attention follows you so intensely. It isn't admiration. It's emotional outsourcing. Projection is a strange, subtle magnet. People instinctively respond to your presence not with genuine curiosity, but with an internal rehearsal of their own unresolved issues. You become a canvas for emotions they can't express, and because they see their struggles reflected in you, they can't ignore you. The more aligned, confident, or self-sufficient you are, the more intensely this happens. Your quiet progress forces them to confront discomfort they've long ignored. It's easy to mistake this attention for envy, but it runs deeper than that. People aren't always jealous of what you do. They're unsettled by what you reveal about them. Every small choice you make, every boundary you enforce, every decision you take with integrity highlights compromises others have silently accepted. You become a living reminder of potential they denied, standards they avoided, and truth they evaded. They watch because your life triggers internal questions they don't want to answer. The fascinating part is that projection amplifies the power you didn't ask for. People talk about you, analyze you, and even critique you, but it's not about controlling you. It's about managing their own discomfort. You exist in a space where attention is unavoidable because humans instinctively respond to the energy of authenticity and clarity, even when they disguise it as critique or fascination. You attract projection more than admiration because you are an unfiltered reflection of what others fear confronting. That attention isn't about you. It's about their inner chaos meeting your quiet order. And that is why eyes are glued to you, whether you seek it or not. Number 9. You survived something that should have reduced you. There's a quiet power in endurance, and people can sense it even if they can't define it. You went through challenges that would have broken most people, yet here you are, intact, sharper, stronger, and moving forward. Survival doesn't leave scars alone. It leaves evidence of transformation, and that transformation draws attention because it's a signal to others that the rules they counted on don't always apply. Most people expect struggle to bend someone to its will. They assume pain will make a person cautious, timid, or bitter. When someone emerges from hardship without being diminished, it creates unease. Others can't easily categorize your story. They want to reduce your experience to a simple explanation, luck, privilege, or outside help. But the truth is, Your survival came from something deeper. Your resilience, clarity, and refusal to let circumstances define you. That refusal makes people study you because it contradicts the narrative they've accepted about life, effort, and control. Your endurance also exposes hidden truths about human weakness. When others see you navigating difficulties without collapse, they subconsciously compare themselves. They measure their own coping strategies, their own compromises, and the ways they folded under pressure. You didn't have to perform miracles to prove anything. Just existing, intact and unbroken, reveals the gap between potential and actuality in ways that are impossible to ignore. There's a subtle fascination in watching someone who survived what should have defeated them. It's not admiration alone, it's curiosity tinged with a little discomfort. People want to understand how you did it, because it challenges their assumptions, and the more they try to rationalize it, the more you remain a variable they can't predict. You survived what should have reduced you, and that survival speaks louder than words. It's a living demonstration that strength isn't always loud, power isn't always visible, and endurance is often misunderstood. People watch because you are proof that life's worst trials do not guarantee defeat, and that proof is both inspiring and unsettling. Number 10. You don't over-explain yourself, and that frustrates people. There's a power in restraint, and most people underestimate it. You don't feel the need to justify your choices, defend your actions, or constantly explain your thoughts. You operate on clarity, not confusion, and that alone unsettles people. They are used to interaction being transactional. A reason is given, a narrative is constructed, and then everyone moves on. When you refuse to provide that narrative, when you simply exist in alignment with your own truth, it forces others into a state they aren't comfortable with. They can't categorize you, predict you, or argue with you because there's nothing to debate. Most people crave explanations because it gives them a sense of control. If they understand your motives, they feel safe. If they can dissect your decisions, they feel prepared. You don't offer that. You don't over-clarify because you know your life isn't their property, and your choices don't need external validation. That refusal to perform for an audience, even silently, irritates and fascinates at the same time. People watch, analyze, and sometimes misinterpret you simply because you won't fill in the blanks they've constructed. The frustration arises from a deeper truth. Your self-possession exposes how much others rely on noise and explanation to feel secure. They may project assumptions, fabricate stories, or overanalyze minor gestures, all because you won't supply the context they crave. And the more they try to pin you down, the more your quiet consistency highlights their impatience, insecurity, or need for approval. This isn't arrogance, it's discipline. You understand that clarity comes from action, not over-talking. You demonstrate through what you do rather than what you say. That restraint has a subtle gravitational pull. People are drawn to it, puzzled by it, and often irritated by it, because it's rare to encounter someone who doesn't bend to the demand for explanation. By not over-explaining, you maintain control over your narrative without fighting for it. You let your life speak in ways words never could, and that silence, that intentional space, makes you magnetic, unpredictable, and impossible to ignore. Number 11. You don't compete, yet you keep winning quietly. Winning doesn't always announce itself with noise, fanfare, or overt comparison. You understand that the loudest efforts aren't always the most effective. You don't measure your success against anyone else, and you don't chase validation through visible victories. Yet somehow results follow you. Opportunities align, outcomes favor your decisions, and accomplishments accumulate without the need for performance. That quiet, unforced success draws attention because it defies expectations. People assume effort must be loud, struggle must be visible, and ambition must be aggressive. You prove all of that wrong. The unsettling part for others is that your victories don't feel like victories over them. You're not in a race with anyone. You don't seek to outshine, dominate, or prove yourself. Your wins are simply a byproduct of consistency, self-discipline, and clarity. That creates confusion and fascination simultaneously. People watch you because they want to understand how someone can progress so decisively without apparent competition or drama. It challenges the common belief that life rewards noise, manipulation, or showmanship. Your quiet victories also expose hidden weaknesses in others. They highlight the gap between effort and outcome, intention and execution, and preparation versus reaction. People start questioning their own approach without realizing you triggered the reflection. Your life becomes an unspoken benchmark, a reminder that results don't always correlate with stress, hype, or attention. Another layer of intrigue comes from your detachment. You're present in your path, but not obsessed with comparison. That freedom allows you to move with precision, while others expend energy trying to maintain appearances or chase recognition. Your calm, focused trajectory becomes a magnetic point of observation, because people can sense that the foundation of your wins is unshakable, steady, and inherently different from the chaos they're used to. You don't compete, yet you keep winning quietly, and that is exactly why people can't stop watching. It's not loud, it's not performative, and it's not bragging. It's simply effectiveness in motion. And in a world built on noise, the silent accumulation of results is both magnetic and impossible to ignore. Number 12. Your values don't bend under pressure. Most people bend. They adjust their principles, compromise their boundaries, or alter their stance just to fit in, gain approval, or avoid conflict. It's a quiet survival tactic. Small concessions here, subtle shifts there, until suddenly their integrity feels optional. You don't do that. Your values aren't flexible depending on who's watching or what's at stake. That unwavering alignment is both magnetic and unsettling, because it exposes how conditional most people's ethics really are. When someone stands firm, it sends a silent signal. You cannot be swayed, bargained with, or manipulated through fear or expectation. That makes observers pay attention, not out of admiration alone, but because they are forced to reckon with the strength required to live this way. Your consistency highlights the shortcuts, compromises, and half-measures that people tolerate in themselves and others. Simply by holding steady, you make them aware of what they've sacrificed in order to avoid discomfort, confrontation, or risk. Your steadfastness also shifts social dynamics. People who thrive on negotiation, persuasion, or influence feel challenged by your clarity. They watch to see if cracks appear, waiting for the moment when pressure might bend you like it does everyone else. When it doesn't, the fascination deepens. Your consistency exposes the illusion that pressure can always control outcomes, and that revelation makes people both cautious and curious. There's a subtle power in this quiet integrity. You don't need to argue, explain, or prove your position. Your choices, your boundaries, and your actions speak louder than words. That silence is louder than chaos because it forces reflection. People notice when someone is unshakable because it illuminates their own fragility. Your values don't bend under pressure, and that is why attention follows you. Not because you are inflexible in a trivial way, but because your alignment reveals truths most people avoid. It shows the difference between temporary conformity and lasting strength, between convenience and principle, and between those who exist to please others and those who exist to stay true to themselves. People can't look away because you embody a rare form of power, one that requires no explanation, no performance, and no compromise. Number 13. You trigger accountability just by existing. Some people live in a world of excuses. Deadlines are negotiable, promises are flexible, and responsibility is optional. Then someone like you enters their orbit, and suddenly those excuses start sounding weak, even to themselves. Your presence alone creates a kind of unspoken pressure. You don't have to call anyone out or point fingers. You simply operate with integrity, discipline, and clarity, and that standard makes others feel the weight of their own shortcuts. Accountability is contagious when it's modeled quietly. People notice how you follow through, how you keep commitments, and how you align actions with words. They notice how you manage your time, handle challenges, and remain consistent when chaos swirls around you. There's no performance, no showmanship, just a demonstration of what it looks like to live without compromise. That example is uncomfortable because it highlights the difference between intention and execution in their own lives. You also expose hidden laziness and denial without trying. People who are accustomed to coasting on minimal effort or rationalizing failure can't help but feel a twinge of self-awareness when they see you moving steadily forward. Your presence becomes a mirror they didn't ask for, reflecting the ways they dodge responsibility, the promises they quietly broke, and the potential they never fully pursued. It's subtle, yet powerful, because it forces reflection without confrontation. This kind of influence is magnetic. People observe you, consciously or not, because they are drawn to your consistency and clarity, while simultaneously feeling unsettled by their own lack of it. You don't seek to shame anyone. You simply embody a standard that cannot be ignored. Your energy nudges them to reevaluate their actions, to measure their priorities, and to confront uncomfortable truths about themselves. You trigger accountability just by existing, because you are proof that a life lived deliberately exposes truth. No arguments, no pressure, no threats, just presence, persistence, and principle. And in a world where mediocrity often hides behind distraction, that is impossible to overlook. Number 14. You're watched because deep down they sense you're still becoming. People are drawn to momentum, even when they don't consciously recognize it. They notice when someone is not just who they are, but who they are steadily becoming. You carry an energy that suggests growth, evolution, and potential that hasn't yet been fully realized. That unfinished but unstoppable trajectory makes others fixate, because humans are wired to monitor variables they cannot predict. You are a moving target in the best possible sense, alive, expanding, and constantly redefining your boundaries. It's unsettling for those around you because they intuitively feel the gap between who they are and who they could be. They watch your choices, your discipline, your quiet wins, and they sense that your story is still unfolding. That awareness triggers curiosity, envy, admiration, and sometimes anxiety, because they realize you are not static, and your next chapter is entirely unknown. Unlike someone who has peaked, who is settled into patterns, or who performs predictably, you carry the dynamic force of potential, and potential is inherently unpredictable. Your evolution is silent but undeniable. It doesn't scream for attention, yet it can't be ignored. Every decision, every boundary, every consistent step forward adds to a growing narrative that others feel compelled to track. People want to anticipate it, to catch up to it, or to understand it, because your forward momentum suggests that staying still is no longer an option in proximity to you. They sense your path is intentional, that your growth is inevitable, and that your trajectory might one day surpass what they once assumed was the limit of possibility. Being observed in this way is not about instant success or achievement. It's about the subtle, ongoing transformation that signals power, self-mastery, and clarity of purpose. You are proof that evolution doesn't require permission, applause, or constant validation. You are still becoming, and that is why eyes are glued to you. Because unfinished growth carries a tension, a magnetism, and a quiet authority that is impossible to ignore. People watch not just who you are, they watch who you are becoming. In a world that thrives on predictability, noise, and conformity, you stand out simply by being yourself. You disrupt without effort, move with intent, survive what should have broken you, and grow without permission. People watch because you challenge hidden norms, expose unspoken truths, and highlight the gaps between potential and reality. You don't need to compete, explain, or perform to command attention. Your presence alone reflects integrity, independence, and relentless evolution. Every step you take, every choice you make, ripples through the lives of those around you, leaving them aware of their own compromises and their own untapped potential. You are a living reminder that quiet consistency, deliberate action, and unwavering values carry far more weight than any noise, chaos, or superficial achievement. Being watched isn't about intrusion, it's about recognition. It's the world noticing what you've quietly mastered, yourself. And that is the true essence of being chosen. People aren't just observing your accomplishments, they are witnessing a force that continues to grow, shift, and redefine the ordinary. You are living proof that power isn't always loud, success doesn't always demand a stage, and influence doesn't require validation. Every eye on you is an acknowledgement that someone, somewhere, sees the rare alignment of purpose, discipline, and unstoppable momentum. So remember this: your journey, your growth, and your integrity speak louder than any applause or criticism. You don't need permission to evolve, and the attention you draw is simply a reflection of what you embody. Keep moving, keep building, and keep being the person who refuses to shrink or compromise. If this resonated with you, make sure to hit that subscribe button to join the journey. Like this video if it gave you clarity, share it with someone who needs to see this, and drop a comment below with your thoughts. Let's keep the conversation going and keep rising together. Stay awakened, chosen ones.